Friends, today I'm going to tell you a story that is not just about a poor girl, but about every person who has ever refused to surrender to the system. A story that shows how a simple incident beginning in the corner of a small market can change an entire city. Imagine a busy afternoon in the city's oldest grain market. The sound of bargaining over vegetables, the chatter of vendors, and amidst it all, a girl with a simple appearance, Habiba. For years, she'd been earning her livelihood in this very place, but that day, fate had planned something else. That day, the spark that ignited in her eyes did not just challenge a person, it challenged the entire system. Friends, this is not just a story. This is a warning. For the system, for injustice, and for us. Because when justice is denied, a person is forced to become justice themselves. Friends, watch this story till the end. Habiba was sitting with her vegetable cart, around 30 years old, wearing a blue salwar suit. On her face, lines of years of relentless hard work were clearly visible. In her eyes, there was a strange brightness. Beyond fatigue, there was an unseen spark, telling the story of a suppressed rebellion. Until now, her life had been simple. But that day, fate took a sharp turn. Suddenly, a harsh, arrogant voice pierced through the noise of the market. "Hey girl, just sell your vegetables quietly. Don't create trouble with the police." That voice belonged to Leighton, a constable from the local police station whose bulky body and arrogance were notorious throughout the area. Right behind him, like a shadow, was his companion, Raj. He always nodded in agreement with Leighton, supporting every injustice without question. Habiba heard them, but didn't even blink. There was no fear in her eyes today, no hesitation, only a slow-burning fire that was about to engulf the entire city in just a few minutes. This was the same old, overused story. But this time the answer was about to be something new. Like every week, Leighton and Raj had come to collect hafta, weekly extortion money. Leighton stood with his hands on his waist and arrogantly said, "Habiba, this time you owe 250 rupees. It's an order from the top, even pressure from higher up." His voice carried the same old dominance, the kind that made small vendors hand over a portion of their hard-earned money. Habiba looked at her vegetables, then peeked into her purse. She had only 90 rupees, earned through a whole day of effort. In a nearly hushed tone, she said, "Babuji, last week I gave 180 rupees. This week vegetables are expensive too. Please have some mercy." Her voice had a soft plea, one that often revealed helplessness and constraint. "Don't talk too much." Leighton's patience had run out. He exploded in anger and gave Habiba's cart a hard shove. The cart trembled. Fresh coriander scattered across the street. Green beans were thrown everywhere. Red tomatoes rolled away, some mercilessly crushed under the feet of the crowd. Years of buried pain and helplessness choked up in Habiba's throat, and didn't go down this time. But this time Habiba didn't bend. She raised her head. The fire in her eyes had now become a flame. A few moments, and those moments became history. For a moment, Habiba opened her old, worn-out strength, the strength she had earned by grinding in dust and dirt for years. Then, it was as if an invisible power surged through her. With both hands, she grabbed the collar of Leighton's khaki uniform, gave him a strong shove, and said, "This dust of the street, Babuji, is not yours. It's ours." And then, a powerful slap landed. The sound of the slap was so loud that silence spread across the entire market. Even the wind seemed to stop. The crowd stood stunned. Breaths paused. Leighton staggered backward. His heavy body lost balance. A red mark from Habiba's fingers was imprinted on his cheek. A thin stream of blood flowed from his nose. Raj, who had been standing silently until then, raised his baton. But by then, Habiba's knee had struck him straight in the chest. Raj, groaning in pain, fell back. Habiba's voice had now turned into a scream. She shouted with all her might, "You people beat my husband to death 3 years ago. Now it's my turn. Let's see what you can do." The story that had only lived in Habiba's eyes until now came pouring out, erupting like a volcano. 3 years ago, Habiba's husband Majnu was a hard-working auto rickshaw driver. He was known for his honesty and tireless work. One day, by mistake, his rickshaw lightly bumped into a car of a senior city officer. The officer wasn't even scratched. But Majnu was taken to the police station without a hearing. Habiba went to the station many times. She pleaded, but no one listened. 5 days later, on a cold morning, Majnu's dead body was returned to Habiba. The post-mortem report said suicide. But Habiba knew it was a lie written on paper. She had seen the cruelty in the eyes of the police. She had seen the brutality that had taken her husband's life. Habiba couldn't do anything. She had 2 young children, 6-year-old Banti and 3-year-old Atika. She would sit by her vegetable cart day and night, swallowing her tears. Only so, there would be no trouble with the police, so her children wouldn't lose their home. But that day, at exactly 2 in the afternoon, under that very cart, her soul had died. Only vengeance remained alive, a revenge she had nurtured within her for years. The crowd was no longer just an audience. Seeing Leighton and Raj lying on the ground, the fear in people started to fade. The stories of police injustice, silenced for years, began to rise in their minds. Nearby stood a young boy named Rohan, who often worked at the same market with his father. He immediately took out his smartphone and recorded the entire unbelievable scene. That 30-second video shook the entire city. It spread like wildfire. In the video, it was clearly seen, an ordinary vegetable vendor woman slapping a police officer, then kicking him in the face. Behind them, 30 to 40 people stood stunned. Some faces showed fear, some held back joy. A strange satisfaction. The police officer lay on the ground, and Habiba's voice was clearly heard. "I will get justice for my husband's death. Let the whole police station come if they want." The atmosphere of the city changed. Like fire spreading through a forest, this video spread. From one person to another. From one phone to another. Within 2 hours, 5 WhatsApp groups, Facebook pages, and local news channels began running headlines. Vegetable vendor versus police. On social media, Habiba's story began to go viral rapidly. With every share, with every comment, the anger suppressed in people. For years against the police started to pour out. The very next day, more than 50 vegetable vendors, along with hundreds of ordinary citizens, gathered in front of the police station. They didn't have baskets of vegetables in hand, instead they held placards, one of which read in big bold letters, "Today we are all Habiba." The police retaliated, were fierce and ruthless. An FIR was immediately filed against Habiba, and she was arrested late at night from her home. Sections 303, attempt to murder, 386, assault on a government officer, inciting riot, and issuing threats to kill. Severe charges were filed. Habiba was handcuffed and taken to the station, but on her face there was a strange calm, a victorious smile, a smile that said she had begun her fight. Outside the station, the crowd and their anger were growing. People began chanting, "We can free Habiba. We want justice." But the truth inside couldn't stay hidden for long. 2 days later, a local RTI activist, Srivastava, known for his fearlessness and fight against injustice, brought out the police station's CCTV footage and Leighton and Raj's old case files. The truth that emerged shocked the entire city. It was discovered that Litan already had 8 prior complaints: land grabbing, threatening small business owners, illegally collecting extortion, all of which were always buried under power and money. In the last 2 years alone, there were records of extortion from over 40 vegetable vendors, which had destroyed many small businesses. And the most heartbreaking truth: Majnu's death case was reopened. The forensic report revealed severe assault marks on his body, which clearly showed that his death was not suicide, but the result of brutality. The police had deliberately hidden the facts. As this new evidence came to light, the entire public stood by Habiba. Media gave this story prime coverage, and national-level debates began. The court heard the case, and a judgment came that set a precedent, a new definition of justice. 6 days later, the case reached a fast-track court. The judge gave a historic verdict. When the protectors of the law become the predators, then the people's resistance becomes the form of justice. Habiba was not guilty. But a warning to this broken system: the FIR against Habiba was dismissed, Litan was immediately suspended, and a criminal case was ordered against him. Raj was transferred to a remote rural area, where he could no longer trouble anyone. Where's Habiba today? She still pushes her cart in that same market of Mundi, but not alone. Every Thursday, 3 other widowed women sit beside her, women who were also victims of the system's cruelty. Habiba's fight gave them the courage to raise their own voices too. An old hawker also stays with them, whose small shop was forcefully removed by the police. And Rohan, the boy who recorded the video, now runs a small digital marketing agency and does free branding for Habiba and other street vendors. He brings their story of struggle to the world, so that awareness spreads in society. And that cart, which is now seen with much more respect than before, has a board hanging on it full of pride. It's not just vegetables anymore. It smells like justice. Habiba's story has become a symbol of that unbreakable strength that lives within an ordinary person when they stand up against injustice. This story teaches us that true strength doesn't lie in guns or uniforms, but in courage, truth, and unity. Habiba has shown that a single spark can light up the entire darkness. Habiba is now not just a name, she has become an inspiration of the courage that turns years of silence into words, a storm that shakes the roots of injustice. So friends, how did you like the story? If you liked it, do subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Also, let us know from where you're watching the video.